What's up, everybody? It's HERO LAIR back with you. My name's Dan, and they are Mario and Josh. All right, guys. So we took a look at the Warcraft trailer that just came out. If you want to see our thoughts and reviews on it, we'll link to the reaction video. But here's something I wanted to run by you guys. World of Warcraft, and I'd also throw in Assassin's Creed, right?
Yeah.
These are two movies that are coming out that a lot of us have hopes that these are the first video game movies that are video game adaptations that are actually legit films, right? That are going to do what, like the Tim Burton Batman did, or the Donner Superman did, where it was, you saw it and you're like, oh yeah, it was a decent movie. No, it was a good, entertaining
Made from
film.
like very heavy-hitting series.
Right.
Like Assassin's Creed and Warcraft have years of history behind.
Oh yeah, so much deep mythology, right?
Yeah.
We've had some bad video game adaptations, right? The Hitman movies, terrible. I like Mortal Kombat. I think we all have a good place in our heart for the '95 Mortal Kombat. Yeah. But that's a nostalgia thing.
It's a nostalgia thing.
You can't just take in like a random guy that's heard nothing about it, and be like, that's a legit movie, like how The Dark Knight did, or how Iron Man did, right? Based on at least the first trailer, I'll start with you because you never played the video game. Do you think it has a chance to be?
Well, see, like here, I'm the perfect example of the guy you were just talking about. Yeah. Like, I'm not a World of Warcraft player. I'm not one of those guys who's going to come in with any bias towards the movie whatsoever. I'm going to come in thinking that this has a source material. Just like, to me, it's just a different source. It's not a comic book. It's not a book. It's just a video game is the source material. Right. But does this stand on its own as a movie? Does it have storyline? Does it have, like, is it well written? Everything, cinematography, everything. Is this a film? Yeah. Can this stand on its own? So I'm going in blank. Yeah. So as soon as I'll definitely, once we've seen the movie and we review the movie afterwards.
We're talking about first impressions here.
Yeah, so, but that first impression of the trailer, it looks like kind of a very, like, Lord of the Ring-esque type, or almost like a kind of a cross between like Lord of the Rings vastness with like an Avatar story to it. Yeah. So there's definitely piqued my interest, and I'm looking, like I got your points earlier back. If you look at the trailer reaction of like, there's a couple of things that are kind of wonky in the trailer, but overall, it's interesting.
Yeah. I think you're more into video games than I am, but we're at least involved a bit. What are you more anticipating, World of Warcraft or Assassin's Creed?
Well, the thing is, I haven't seen too much of I haven't seen too much trailer imagery.
Wait, Assassin's Creed, we've seen nothing. It's been in like development now.
For Assassin's Creed,
and it's a loaded question.
Right, exactly. So all I have to compare it to is what we've seen with Warcraft. Yeah. I think, just given that I like the fantasy so much, and like or just science fiction in general, or greater fiction. The level of expanse and escapism, I think, in Warcraft might be really interesting. Yeah. But I'm concerned about losing a little bit of its. It's like when you read this, like we talked about the look of the orcs. It was just a bit kind of cartoonish and animated, and overdone, like, almost like a caricature. So it's kind of like I liken it to. I love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man comics. You read a comic by Todd McFarlane, and it's drawn, and it's amazing. But then you got some of these new wave artists that draw Spider-Man with like a big head, small neck, big hands, skinny body, and it's like it's the same thing. It's Spider-Man, but when I'm reading the comic, I lose interest because it's like I don't.
It's not the artwork you kind of appreciate.
I can't. It's not bringing me in because it's not grounding me enough. The artwork is just too loose. So I think that's the only thing I'm concerned about for me.
Total speculation, right? And just shooting the shit. But if I'm looking at Assassin's Creed and World of Warcraft, you're right about how expansive Warcraft is to tell a story. And in the back of my head, I kind of think that might be its downfall. You used to hear the term, this book is unfilmable. Like for the longest time, Lord of the Rings, this is unfilmable. Yeah. Right? Watchmen, unfilmable. Yeah. Now I think the new kind of term that we have to be looking at is, it's filmable, but does it convey to the end product something that's actually worthwhile? I can see Assassin's Creed doing well and being a lot more grounded, like what you said.
It's a history piece.
Just because, I mean, it's an assassin, right? Yeah. He's going to be delving in corners, a bit more of a ninja story. Whereas this expanse that they have to cover in World of Warcraft, such a huge mythology, the epicness of playing the game, and they have to bring that in order to satisfy the video game fans as well as bring in new people. Yeah. Man, such a fucking undertaking.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from director Duncan Jones. He was talking with Entertainment Weekly, and he's talking about he says he believes Warcraft and Assassin's Creed can be the movies that gamers have long waited for. So he said, there are a couple of things. One thing I would say is that stigma used to be attached to comic book movies too. It took a generation of filmmakers who loved and were raised on comic books to make movies that you actually cared about and felt something for. I think that's absolutely the same with what's going on with video game movies. I am absolutely of the video games generation. I started on the Atari and Commodore 64 and the Amiga.
Oh my, Commodore 64.
Yeah, awesome. He's got some good pulls back there. He goes on to say, I'm a gamer at heart and always have been. I'm also a filmmaker. I think my sensibilities about storytelling and character just automatically come into play when I'm trying to work on any kind of narrative. For me, it doesn't really matter what the source of the narrative is. I will be looking for ways to make it into an intriguing story with empathetic characters. So, obviously, I love what he's saying here, at least in terms of the consciousness that he has.
Yeah,
because it is the complete fucking opposite of the Batman Forever Joel Schumacher type.
Yeah, I just wanted to sell some toys.
Yeah, where these guys just, we don't care about that, this is the movies.
Yeah.
And also, if you watch The Death of Superman Lives documentary by John Schnepp, I have it.
Finally finished that. That was fantastic.
Buy that shit. TDOSLWH. He has a great interview with Kevin Smith, talking about when they kind of wanted him to write on the Nicolas Cage Superman that was in development. And Kevin Smith goes, well, why don't you bring the comic book writers in? They know this stuff. They can crack the story, give you something. And the producers were like, no, but they're comic book guys. They don't want movies.
I want movie guys. And there's just such a separation of state almost.
We're like, so what? Story is story. So he definitely has... It's good to hear a guy doing this because, back when we were kids, directors weren't saying this.
No, that's I definitely agree.
They wanted to make their own mark as directors.
Yeah, and source material was just used so loosely that it didn't matter. Yeah. One thing that I wanted to go back on that you were talking about is the vastness of this universe. And again, coming from nowhere, I have no preconceived knowledge of this, but what I really like that people are doing now with source material that's at one point thought to be unfilmable is they've gone the television route. And that's so, it's like, would this be something that maybe they shouldn't have gone a film, or maybe this is the start of something that you can start it in film and then move it on to, say, a television route that continues it?
I don't think
you can do it.
You cannot do it on television.
Here's the I agree. Two big hurdles on them, right? The heavy one, you're gonna have much less budget, and two, a lot less time. If maybe they could pull it off if they scaled it back and did more of Urukai style works. Yeah. Then I think you could pull that off on television, because I think essentially it'd be the same kind of makeup work that you would do with Walking Dead. Yeah. I don't think Game of Thrones does it great.
That's my point. Yeah,
you would have to change it. Yeah. Maybe they could.
But still, even in that world, what that world entails, it entails griffins and minotaur and all these. It's just too much.
Yeah. Whereas having one episode in Game of Thrones will have the big battle, and that one episode would also have 3 giants. Yeah. And it's really not for a long time. You're talking about an entire half of the cast needs to be these orcs, and you don't have a lot of time to crank these out. They've been working on this for 3 years for the movie. They have hours and hours, and studios. Visual effects studios working around the clock full time,
rendering all this stuff. It's just so tough to hear that. You know what I mean? Now, because we're in an era, like you said, that I definitely believe that video games. Not that I was a gamer, but I'm just because of being such a consummate comic guy and cartoon guy that I was growing up, that I want them to have the same type of success that we had, and that are as source material that we have now. With the comic books, because I'm a movie fan at the end of the day, and any good source material that's brought to the people who love the material, I think can make a good movie. So that's why I'm hoping that he can capture it. I'm hoping that, but I just don't have familiarity with it. Right. And if it's so vast that it's unfilmable, maybe, again, stretch it out over multiple movies, stretch it out over multiple series, whatever, or even go the route that Marvel's gone with television and movies and do something of that nature. But I don't know. Again, I'm not familiar with the
I hope it's a success because there are a lot of great video game properties that would be great. I was really disappointed when the Halo movie got pulled. I don't know if either of you guys played Halo a lot, but Neil Blomkamp was attached to it. He ended up reusing a lot of the stuff I think he developed for Halo in Elysium. Yeah. Or like the circular base. And if you remember, Kruger had the energy shield. Yeah, right? That's all straight from Halo. Yeah. Okay. Right? But there's so many great stories in video games.
And I'd be looking forward to I'm looking forward to Assassin's Creed as well because I think that they could do a really good job on Assassin's Creed because it's just more. And like we said, it's more grounded, more tied to actual history. Right. So you're gonna bring a bunch more people in terms of a layman audience.
I agree. Yeah.
And you could make that really interesting, like very Splinter Cell-esque. It doesn't have to be so elaborate. Like hopefully they don't do it so that he's literally like just like on a wire and climbing buildings. Wire foo crap. As
Charlie's Angels.
That'll be its downfall. That'll be its downfall.
Yeah. Well. We'll wait and see. I'm hoping it crushes it. Alright guys, so some news out of the X-Men world. X-Men Apocalypse is back in Montreal shooting pickups and reshoots, which is common. I mean, nobody fucking freak out. Yeah. Like these movies are so big that you're not going to get it all in that span of time. You're not going to have all the actors there together. So every major blockbuster movie plans for a reshoot kind of schedule. Rumor has it that Hugh Jackman, who we thought wasn't going to be involved in the storyline at all, rumor has it that he's there for the reshoots. And that either this was planned all along or if they're changing their tune. I'm excited to see Wolverine in this. I don't need him to be the main story. No, sure he should be. He's been the main through line for the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Days of Future Past was his movie. We don't need it any. He doesn't need to carry that anymore. But he does belong at least in there. The Apocalypse is going to be the at least hopefully the biggest foe that they've shot. Well, we'll save our Apocalypse discussion for after. But
also I just think that because it starts in the history where it starts. I don't know. Perhaps there's a certain time block where it's in the past that we have Wolverine. You know what I mean?
Maybe, it's the '80s. So he should look the same. I mean,
and just like I was saying, where is he at that point? It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, where would it be at?
Well, that's the only kind of decade they really haven't touched on yet. Because you had him in the 90s, with the original X-Men series. You had him in the 70s in the most recent, Days of Future Past. So the 80s would be the era that really has bits. Like now, what kind of are we going to see a jacket with fringes on it? You know what I mean? Like what are we going to see? Like him busting out like a Naked Guns N' Roses t-shirt or. It's going to be interesting to see where he's going to be at. Do I believe he should be in there? He's always been the cornerstone of X-Men for me. Right? He's the most interesting character in the original, in all of them so far.
In the movie universe.
In the movie universe. And that's where I mainly come from, the movie universe when it comes to X-Men. As, huge Bryan Singer fan from, the Usual Suspects onwards. So it's definitely going to be, I'm definitely happy. This is the final.
Yeah, I'm happy too. I don't think they'll be pulling any weird love triangles with Cyclops, him and Jean Grey, because Cyclops and Jean Grey are teenagers. So it wouldn't really, unless maybe Singer's down for that. He wants to push the envelope, right? He might. I mean, in the '80s, it might flip back and forth in the timeline, so you don't know when he'll show up. But in the '80s, Wolverine, Logan would be with Weapon X, wouldn't he? And would he be with Alpha Flight? Running in Canada?
I can't remember. With Puck and Sasquatch?
Yeah, and Vindicator and shit.
Yeah.
You know who any of these characters are? No. Vindicator's pretty much, take what the Canadian national bobsleigh team wears. Yes. That's Vindicator's costume.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
And this guy named Puck, he's like he has midgetism, and he just bounces around.
He's what everyone thought Peter Dinklage was going to play. When he was first cast, Puck's in the movie.
No way, that'd be hilarious.
Well, we've seen some of the Blob was in Wolverine Origins, right? Fucking
so was Will.i.am.
Yeah, and so was Deadpool. But that's a different kind of
we don't talk about that movie,
gentlemen. We got if it sticks to the plan, however long, whatever Wolverine's involvement in, or Hugh Jackman Wolverine. I mean, they're going to recast him at some point. But Hugh Jackman at least involved in X-Men Apocalypse, and then you have the I guess Wolverine 3 you can call it. But
Yeah.
the final standalone with him in it.
Yeah.
Professor Patrick Stewart's going to be in it with him. So
Excellent.
who knows with that. And then that's it, man. Because by then maybe it'll be like 17 years playing a character.
Yeah.
Longest, yeah, he's like the longest running of actor that played one single character in like any film.
He beats all of them, yeah. Like he beats Roger Moore's Bond.
Yeah,
Connery's
all of
Bond.
them. Like Connery's Bond. Like Connery was the longest lasting Bond, but still
When
like
was the first X-Men out?
2001? 99? Oh,
Yeah.
I have the fucking internets right in my lap.
Yeah.
How about we do that, right? I think it was 2001.
Yeah. I mean, I that to keep in that kind of shape with whatever.
well, like if you look
It's
at him,
tough.
he's actually
It's
gone
tough.
in better shape.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
July of 2000.
2000. So when
Yeah.
I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's
Like-
been playing it for 15 years.
Well, he was small in the first one.
Yeah, he was not like. Well,
He's not naturally
He
a big
comes
guy.
from what, a dance background or
Yeah,
something like
he's not-
that.
He's tall.
Like,
He's like
he
legit
is
No,
tall.
no, no,
6'3",
no.
but-
Thickness.
but-
Thickness.
yeah.
I'm talking about his thickness
But
and muscularity. It's not
he is absolutely jacked
Yeah.
lately. Like the last few
right.
times he's played the part, he's gotten serious about his lifting. And you look at like some of like the workouts, and like they've shown some on YouTube and stuff like that, and he's throwing up 4 plates and deadlifts and stuff like that. Like he's doing some good weight, man. And how old is he? He's like 43 or 45 or something like that. Like
I think that's
he's no joke. Man.
He's keeping it up, but after a while, you know,
Your body's gonna
because
just
every day he's got to eat this amount.
Yeah.
He's got like the wear and tear on his joints and everything.
What's your guys' speculation? Because again, you guys are more into the X-Men than I am, and like again, everything that I've read, like again, Wolverine's kind of the only guy I kind of click with in this series is the Old Man Logan. This is all I'm hearing about is the last movie that everybody's talking about, Old Man Logan, which is kind of like they thought he was out of it by then, and he kind of makes a last comeback and a last like hurrah.
That they could do it. The thing is, a lot of the major characters in that are owned by Disney Marvel, at least for movie licensing.
All right.
So they would have to switch in different guys that Fox actually has the licensing for.
Mm-hmm.
But they could kind of pull it off. It would kind of lose a bit, but Fox never. Here's what I've come to accept with Fox in these X-Men movies, right? Mm-hmm. Don't sit down. And I thought about this from previous conversations that we had, right? You sit down, and as long as you think, I'm going to watch a movie about mutants, as long as you put yourself in that mind state, the vast majority of the movies have been enjoyable.
Yeah.
If what you think is you're going to see a perfect adaptation of character and story and themes from the comic book replayed on screen, like what Zack Snyder is so great at doing, if you're going to think that, then you're going to be unhappy.
Yeah, you're not.
Because they do take a lot of liberty.
Well, it's like
I could hand you the Days of Future Past comic.
Yeah.
And I could also hand you the cartoon miniseries.
Yeah.
Of what they had on there, and you could watch it again because it's similar themes, but characters are all changed around. So it might as well be a new piece of
art for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it's at.
It's like anything, but like I've kind of come like not coming from the comic book background of Marvel in general. I know that Marvel's split amongst a few different cinematic houses. So it has to be given. So it's going to be very hard for any one of them to amalgamate and tell the story that closely. Mm-hmm. Where DC's not like that. DC's more...
It's all under one house.
All under one house. Like Warner owns everything there, right? Or Time Warner owns everything. Yeah. So it's a little easier to keep it, like that Snyder-esque closeness to the original source material. Mm-hmm.
So switching over to Warner Brothers. So we know that Ben Affleck's going to direct a solo Batman movie. It may even be as much as a trilogy. Mm. So the rumor now, this is coming from Joe Blow, is that the first solo Batman movie is going to center around under the Red Hood storyline.
Okay.
I'm going to you first on this. What do you think?
I think that it's okay. Well, it can be really interesting because if you go to now, we haven't really seen through any of the Dark Knight movies, regardless of affiliation, we haven't seen like a true Robin, because I'm not even counting that stuff. Yeah.
No,
you know what I'm talking.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen a true Robin. So the interesting thing about the Red Hood, the credibility there, the history, what makes it engaging is it is Jason Todd. Jason Todd being one of the Robins
Yeah.
who was presumed dead and killed by the Joker in
Yeah.
a very great series of comics done called Death in the Family. Now, he's taught by Batman. He's a great martial artist, and he's just extremely violent. He's got like almost like a psychopathic element to his personality, which is why he was not a very good Robin. He was headstrong, and that's why he got himself killed too. So the combat would be great. It would be a nice story to put together. It's just like, the question for me is, how do you tie it together for the audience? How do you give it that sense of history when you haven't yet done the Robin piece? Right?
I definitely like. I've always been a fan, and like one of the huge reasons I'm like a fan of Star Wars and a lot of these other movies is where the student becomes the master. Like that's always a theme that's kind of always resonated with me very highly, and I agree with you. Like the Red Hood is that student that becomes like the master or the challenger, at least in this aspect. And in order for that to work and to work well, yes, you need to have background. You need to have and a flashback's just not going to do it. Like
it has to be a long one.
It has to be a long flashback.
I mean, I'm a fan of, and this started with Man of Steel. And I really like the non-linear origin story because his adult life and discovering Superman almost ran concurrently with his backstory of landing. So it's not as if we went from, a crash landing and all the way through like the movie did. We went back and forth, and on screen there wasn't enough time. I mean, you call them flashbacks, but they were done very, very well.
Well, but that's that's like co-linear timelines, which I'm not. If it's done in that way, okay, that makes more sense.
I think we're just saying it needs to be there. Like it can't just be the Red Hood.
Yes,
like you've got to have some backstory.
So does that? Yeah. Well, it has to work in two different ways if it's going to be Red Hood. Because so right now we're starting at Batman v Superman. And we've seen that Robin uniform that's almost...
Yes.
It's a memorial.
Yes.
In the Batcave that he's looking at,
Yes.
right? We don't know which Robin it is, but a Robin's fucking dead.
Yeah.
Right? In order for it to come full... this movie could be a prequel. It could take place before the events of Man of Steel.
Yes.
It easily could. Right? But then you wouldn't be able to... All you could do is just... If it's before Man of Steel, solely... You can only pay off the Death in the Family storyline. Because I don't think you could play it all the way... you can't play it all the way through for then the Red Hood to happen, unless he took down the Red Hood before Batman v Superman ever started.
Yeah.
And if that happens, would he still... Maybe would still keep the memorial there. To me, it plays better like a Man of Steel non-linear storytelling where you're going back and forth. Because then you can pay off kind of both.
Yeah, like I don't see it's like anything, right? Like you don't know. And would he still have it? He may, because it's like anything. Like it's still like the Robin he knew is dead.
Yeah.
In an aspect, right? And now like he's born again in the Red Hood or whatever you want to call it. Spoilers, of course, on that. And if you haven't read the comic book, it's an interesting storyline. Again, like we were saying, only if the backstory is told, only if it's brought up very poignantly that this was someone who was very close to him, who was a student, who is now becoming an adversary.
That whole aspect of like for you as the viewer to really appreciate the cunning of the adversary, the skill of the adversary, and like the back and forth and why it's causing Batman, who should be a very good combatant, why it's causing him so much problem, so much issue physically and even emotionally, for him to have to to attack his own basically adopted son essentially, right? You need to have that backstory. So you're right, like it could be some kind of co-linear like dual storyline going through. That would be fine as long as there's something that explains what he is.
Yeah, you can't rush it. Like I think in the BVS trailer, we've seen a flashback to the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. That happens really quick, which I think is all we need.
Yeah.
We don't
at this point,
we've
got enough of people know the origin.
Yeah, but see, at this point,
you would need more.
Yeah, you would need more because
and you need more of the Joker
popularized,
too.
Right?
And you need more of the Joker as well, right?
True.
Yeah, it's an interesting go. Now, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of theories out there. I know, like again, like Batman v Superman's another huge thing for me. So it's like I've been doing a lot of like there's a lot of really good theories out there and a lot of YouTube channels that
and
have
a
been
lot of
talking
terrible
about.
ones.
But some of them have actually like where they kind of link the Netherworld stories of Robin turning into the Joker. I don't know if you've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, I think those are terrible.
Like it's
those are the terrible ones I'm talking
yeah,
about.
They're really
so odd. Yeah.
It is odd, but there is background to that. Now it's like we have to see something in these story. Like it's like there's so much speculation going around now, which is great that people are into these and that Snyder's bringing this universe together that everybody wants to see more and more of. I can't see like how you're talking about this as a post Batman v Superman. I almost see this as has to be a prequel or has to be at least linearly or just before that, because you don't have like you've got such a tired, weathered Batman in Batman vs Superman. He's supposed to be like if we are following the Frank Miller's like the Frank Miller storyline, this is Batman's last hurrah. You know what I mean? Or it's just like
yes and no, because this is it's going to lead into Justice League movies. Right?
Yeah, it's true.
He's back in the game.
He's back in the game.
But I do agree with you. It could work well as solely a prequel, all like before Man of Steel.
Yeah.
'Cause maybe that's why he hangs it up.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe there has to be in Batman v Superman, I think there's got to be some kind of callback to a Robin or something happens. Because unless that's just there to play off of next movies, but it would seem really
pretty
strange especially when Zack Snyder's as a filmmaker, he's conscious of all the other stories we've taken in, and to just throw that on there and not do anything with it would be strange. But it's already a busy enough movie. Like
it is a busy enough movie. You've got so much, and it just could be you like you said, like a little Easter egg for future movies or an Easter egg for comic book fans. But it's like it got too much screen time in the trailer to just be nothing. You know what I mean? And whether it's and remember too is like another thing, if he's going along the lines of the Dark Knight Returns, is Batman's been gone for a while. That could just be the catalyst or the reason he's gone, and just a little bit of a backstory that could be told later on.
That he has to fight the Red Hood and discovers who he is, or that Robin died.
That Robin died.
Yeah, that's what I'm more in line with that too.
You know what I mean? That Robin died is like, more of a catalyst. Like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. He's dead. And then then of course now that kind of takes this as a prequel out of the storyline. But
you know what could throw it away though? There's a line in one of the trailers where I think Bruce is arguing with Alfred, and he says something like 20 years in Gotham. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way?
Right?
So,
true. Interesting.
It might all have happened before.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it might have all, and there's so much to it. And would he still keep that? Because that's his old partner. That's his old thing. Like he would always be, like he'd always try to keep some part of him alive, and depending on what changed him into the Red Hood, you kind of remember. Like you look at stuff like parents of people who end up going to jail for murder and stuff like that. They still they don't pretend they didn't have a kid.
Yeah.
They just remember the good times.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So that could be something of that nature where
you're right.
He's remembering the good times and not the last time.
And also remember that Batman comes maybe about 20 minutes, half hour too late. He was because he was out in the desert.
Yeah.
And it's like he could have
changed this whole narrative. Yeah. Like the whole catalyst that made the Red Hood who it is. Yeah. He had an opportunity if he was just a little bit quicker to change. Yeah. So that could be also not so much an homage to Jason Todd, but almost like a reminder of him to be on time, or that he wasn't on time.
Yeah, because he was the one who was progressively changing Jason Todd. Jason Todd was an impetuous, brash Robin, and he was starting to learn, and he resented Batman oftentimes for holding him back, right? But he was learning, but he was cut short before he could. So that's why he
Yeah.
falls into this, because he doesn't have that induction of Bruce Wayne's character and discipline from the East, right?
Yeah. I'll ask you first. Which Robin do you hope is dead?
Which was Jason Todd?
You hope it's Jason Todd?
Yeah.
Just from, again, in order to set this up,
For Red
they could change it all up.
They could change it all up, but yeah, like I really hope that they keep to the original canon as much as possible, where you have, you know, Dick Grayson has gone off.
I
and
want to see
That's why
Tim
you know what I
Grayson
mean?
as the Red Hood. You're like, Tim Grayson's Nightwing. I don't want to see him as the Red Hood.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Grayson?
Like, yeah, Dick Grayson has to
there's
be.
Tim
It's not, and yeah, you need those characters, because those characters are so rich that we can bring them back. And you've got 3 other Batman movies in this universe. Like, I wouldn't throw those away. I think that they're too good of characters to keep, where you've got the Red Hood already established. Keep the Red Hood who it is. Keep the origin original. Yeah. And I don't see Snyder doing anything but keeping that.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be Ben Affleck.
Well, it's still but Snyder's still producing. Or executive producing, which is, because I think this is still, like, he's the marionette player overall in this. Like, I think he's taken the helm.
I hope it's Jason Todd, specifically because I want to see Dick Grayson Nightwing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, like, that would be so
Plus
cool.
the personality fits. Jason Todd's psycho.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. All right, guys. So an interesting quote from Spielberg. I guess he had a pre-recorded message for Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was awarded the Albert R. Broccoli Britannia Award, and the quote said from Spielberg, speaking of Harrison Ford, "I can't wait to work with you again on Indiana Jones 5, but then he goes, this is no announcement, just my fervent hope." So this is something that's kind of been going back and forth, is what to do with this Indiana Jones franchise, right? You don't have to be... George Lucas has nothing to do with it now. When he sold Lucasfilm to Disney,
it's gone.
He cut all creative control and ties. I'm sure he's making a healthy percentage off everything, right?
Thank God.
He's not stupid.
After that Crystal Skull stuff.
That was a big thing, because he had full control over the story, because it's his baby. Spielberg just directs it.
Exactly.
That's what he wanted to go. Had to roll with that. But apparently there was a script previous to that was kick ass, right? And if you're Spielberg, you really want to come back and redeem yourself, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was bad.
And I think Harrison Ford, you know, I'm sure doesn't like the way they left it off either with the Crystal Skull, because no one liked it.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question, because you can go 2 different ways, and I want to get your guys' opinion on it. We'll start with you.
Okay.
Is Indiana Jones Harrison Ford, just like similar to how he is Han Solo, or can the Indiana Jones character become, or should it become, like a Bond, where every few years he's recast and the story continues?
It's really fun. Okay, it's funny how you just went. What was the award that he just won?
Yeah, the Robert R. Broccoli.
Who was the producer
of Bond?
Bond. So it's just really funny that we're talking about it.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
And that's a little movie geekness right there. But it's. I almost want to see him. There are a ton of Indiana Jones stories out there. There possibly could be endless Indiana Jones stories out there. I definitely appreciate what Harrison Ford's brought to the table and created, just like Sean Connery did for Bond. But I definitely think he should pass the mantle.
Yeah.
You know, like, keep it a young, you know, like, adventurous Indiana Jones, and everybody can kind of add their little twist, have everybody kind of add their own little bit of the character to it, and have this, like, I want to see Indiana Jones 25. And where he's still doing his thing, because you can always think of different artifacts that he could go after. Like, they've been very religious in tone lately, but you could, you know, like, make it like a pirate artifact, or you know, like the Fountain of Youth, fortune kind of thing. You know, like anything. Like, you've got so many good. And now this is almost like any of those, like, early morning Saturday cartoons that we grew up with, where, like, you'd have, like, some fictional character kind of drop in historical events, and that's almost what this would be. Is like, he would drop into historical events, but from an archaeologist's perspective, where he's retracing the steps, and it almost becomes like a learning piece for kids or young adults.
I agree with you, because to me, when I think Indiana Jones, I think Nazis.
Yeah.
I want him in that late 1930s to mid 1940s era.
Yeah.
Right, in and around there. Just because if they do keep Harrison Ford for number 5, which I'm not against, but what decade are they in now? Are they in like the 70s now?
Yeah.
Right? Like they're in 1970.
Yeah.
Right? So does that mean he's toiling around New York and goes into Studio 54 for right? Like he's a professor at somewhere. Is that what's going to happen?
See, I think
he'd be retired.
I both agree and disagree. I think column A and column B. Do you remember in
I know what you're going to say.
Crusade?
River Phoenix?
Yeah, River Phoenix, okay?
Yeah.
So they go back and then they go forward. Yeah. That you could have 2 different timelines of Indiana Jones. Because I would love to see, a young Indiana Jones. I was fascinated. I was like, because Indiana Jones as a kid, you're like, you identify Harrison Ford. All of a sudden, it's like he has the hat. I was like, oh, that's where he got the hat from. This whole history of the scar.
Yeah, I love that.
Which Harrison Ford naturally has, right?
The fear of snakes.
Yeah, the fear. Yes, all that. So that was fantastic. So to go that route would be really cool. And to see not just like him becoming like where his adventurous side comes in like that young, but like 24, 25, 26 around there to see what he's up to in that period with like Nazis or whatever else. But then another movie would be fine like in terms of new discoveries where he's going to maybe like in the heart of a jungle, like so something more like Kurtz,
like Aztec,
Kurtz in the heart of darkness.
Yes,
like, so it won't really matter or
Congo or something.
Yes, or like wartime, or you know what I mean, like Vietnam warfare, like something you could do. You could still do very interesting stuff, and you could have that nostalgic pull of having Harrison Ford in there, and you could still make a more grounded tale. Not swinging around on vines and catching the jeeps like in the Crystal Skull or whatever that was with Shia LaBeouf or whatever. You don't. Maybe you could have a protege, but not maybe something a little less. You know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
a little less LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Sans LaBeouf.
Yeah. So I think both would be very very interesting.
Yeah. I think you just cracked it, man. I think that would be a good number 5, a good send off for Harrison Ford, and then if you have picked who the next guy to take the mantle is. I don't think you could just do a random. I don't think you could just do a random young guy.
Yeah.
You need to have your guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it can almost be a story that starts in the past, runs concurrently with something in the future.
Right.
And it all kind of connects.
Yeah.
Then when you have the next movie, that's the actual movie of him. At 25, you're already indoctrinated with the character,
and you've bridged the gap.
Identified with the character,
which is
we have our new Indiana Jones.
And I think some of that was like I think some of that was what they wanted to do with River Phoenix. You know what I mean? At that time was like kind of bridge that gap and see him grow up because he was a teenager then. And then you also had the TV series, The Young Indiana Jones, and all those storylines as well, right? So like it's definitely. I agree. I think the best way to do it would be a bridging movie where you have an old Harrison Ford and the new it guy who becomes Indiana Jones for the next series of movies and then trail off and do another type of thing. The fact is, at the end of the day, though, is I want more Indiana Jones. He's a great character. There's so much. And keeping him in Nazi Germany or in the Nazi era because you have the whole, like, Hitler and his fascination with the occult. Yeah. So you can have that over and over and over again with every artifact.
Just like they did with Hellboy.
Exactly.
You could be in the Viet Cong jungles and have this like strange sect of whatever in there, right? Like,
exactly, and have that, and it can be a reoccurring theme over and over again, but countless amount of stories can come out of that, just like there's countless amount of Bond stories. So I definitely hope that it does go that route, that he does have at least one movie where he passes the baton and it goes on to someone else, and now this someone else will do another series of movies. Because I want to be watching Indiana Jones for a
but
long
I also would want, as Dan said, like the nice send-off, where you'd have like those two things tied together, and maybe at the end, like you'd have that scene where, there was some aspect, some object that was he had acquired when he was young, and he's like holding it up at the end, and he just kind of you know what I mean, some kind of
cross
like,
of Coronado,
whatever it was, you know what I mean.
No, and then he turns it on. It's a lightsaber.
Oh, wow. He did find R2D2
Across the music.
He did find R2D2 in one of those
that's right,
those not lithographs. What do you call those?
In what?
Yeah, you lost it. I don't know.
Yeah, I lost it.
Chill out.
Have you guys heard about favorite actors that people are throwing around to take over the mantle?
Not a clue.
No.
I'll throw them out one at a time, and then we'll get your reactions.
Okay.
Chris Pratt.
Okay. Yeah.
What's he been in? Just give me a...
Star-Lord in Guardians of the
Oh,
Galaxy.
yeah.
He was just recently in Jurassic World.
Jurassic World. Yeah, okay, I can see that.
And Bradley Cooper.
No. Okay. Yeah.
No. Those are the two biggest ones.
I prefer Chris Pratt. He's just more believable as he's got a bit of a huskier build. He's more believable as that kind of tough guy archaeologist rather than
But see, it's okay. I get,
and he's more reminiscent of Harrison Ford.
I agree with the exterior and the build, but Bradley Cooper I can see more as the professor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could see him play that role a little bit better. You know what I mean? More believable. I can see him like like the scene where Harrison Ford's in the classroom and stuff like that. I can see Cooper in that
being more academic,
and just for those aspects.
He's an actor. He's gonna act like I could.
They tried to. Did you guys?
But just from previous work that he's done.
Did you see Jurassic World?
Yeah.
So there they tried to tone down Chris Pratt's sarcastic sense of humor and really try to give him more of a knowledgeable base. Did that sell you on him being academic? No. I didn't buy it either.
No, I didn't buy it.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay.
It's not bad, but it's not. I don't see him
because he still had his jocular character.
He did,
in the film.
Like,
so
they want to eat. They want to hunt. They want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's not like you really got a taste of what he could probably do to more.
No, it's tough to say, right? And I'm going off of previous roles by far, but I just see Cooper as more possibly doing that aspect of it, right? It's almost like you almost need both, right? It's almost like you got to cast Bruce Wayne and Batman, right? And it's almost with Indiana Jones, you do have to cast both. You have to. He's a swashbuckler on one side, but he's also an academic on the other side. So it's almost like a Bruce Wayne Batman, and I just don't see Pratt doing both.
The other interesting to throw into this is I don't know how far in development it is, but the Uncharted movie adaptation based on the video game, and the video game is taken right from Indiana Jones. Relic Hunter.
Yeah, Fortune, as I mentioned earlier.
So you know how you're saying we want future Indiana Jones stories.
Yeah.
If they don't kind of figure it out, those stories might be eaten up by Uncharted, because then it's going to be similar kind of problems. Exactly. And there's a whole generation of kids that grew up playing Uncharted games. That probably haven't watched the old school. Ones, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, like I want to see more Indiana Jones. Hands down. Do a bridging. Do a nice send off. Because, Harrison Ford was a quintessential one at the beginning and deserves every accolade that he gets. But it's just kind of ironic that it's a Broccoli Award that he's getting. And I'd make it a send-off and get more, just like the Bonds.
Anybody watching anything cool?
Yeah. Oh, my God. Okay. So... we were talking earlier about Travis Fimmel from Vikings.
Yes.
So there's a new show that's out. It's called The Last Kingdom. Now
I saw the trailer to this.
Now, if you like Vikings, it's going to be the exact same thing. Not only is it exactly reminiscent of the kind of style and grittiness and true to form carnality of that world and age, but it actually acts almost like a sequel to Vikings because it takes Ragnar. In his later years, once they've already begun to invade and colonize large portions of Europe.
Really?
Last Kingdom being Wessex, the last one to stand up against the Vikings, who have already.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's like this is insane. I get another historical piece. With all the blood and the realism that comes with it, and it's playing off a storyline that I'm already enjoying. In Vikings, which I like the Viking history in itself.
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, it's you guys will love it.
Cool.
You'll
Oh,
love it.
I saw the
sounds-
trailer,
that
and
sounds
I
really
think they're
good.
even
I've
marketing it that way as
Yeah.
like, if you love Vikings, you'll
Yeah.
So it's almost in the. Is it the same network?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I streamed it.
Very cool.
But
Right
yeah,
on my alley.
Last Kingdom. That's for me.
Do you guys watch The Leftovers? Have you ever watched The Leftovers?
A while
No,
ago I
what's
watched
that
it.
about?
It's strange, but it's
It's
interesting.
Damon Lindelof, so
Okay.
the same guy who started Lost with J.J.
Yeah.
Abrams, right? It's the second season, maybe like 4 episodes in. Fucking incredible television.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? So the general big picture idea is, you know how the Bible talks about the rapture and where people, the divine will be accepted up into heaven,
Yeah.
and then God will leave the damned on earth until like
Yeah.
that Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Right? So they don't say it that, but 2% of the population is gone
They just vanished.
off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Just gone. And no one really knows. They call it the departure, right? So it's about the leftovers. How people and of course it's only 2%, so
yeah,
society keeps going. Nothing fucking
Yeah.
fell apart. I forget like the hard number of what they said. Like
I don't need it.
Yeah.
I remember.
But
But
it's
causes
like-
strange cults to develop.
people start
Yeah.
doing weird shit.
Yeah.
Some families are just torn apart. So it follows, kind of a group in one town.
Yeah.
Season 1 was good. I thought, but no, season 2 right now was just turned it on so hard. And the great part is that they thread in a bit of supernatural things, and I don't want to say mysticism,
Very
such a hint,
Very
believable.
subtle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
subtle that it's
yeah,
almost
yeah.
not even there.
but but weird shit happens.
Yeah.
That
Right?
sounds awesome.
And it's not as I think Lost. I didn't watch all of Lost, but I think a lot of the problems that I read of was
They got
they would
carried away.
they would throw something out there and then never tie it up
But
again.
that's because the writer's strike, though.
They got carried away.
Yeah.
Yeah. What Leftovers is doing is stringing it along, and every time where you forget and you think it's just a family drama,
Yeah.
a weird supernatural thing will happen, and they're starting to point it all together. And the way that they build character, and especially in these first 4 episodes of season 2,
Yeah.
you're just hooked. Like you care
Oh,
about
yeah,
you're gripping on every single one, and you have to you just don't know where it's going to go, and it breaks a lot of the rules of conventional TV. It's an HBO show. It doesn't get that huge in numbers. If it was on a network show, if it was on a network, it'd be canceled immediately.
You'll like the grit.
But,
I love it. Yeah,
and
that's
a
my
lot,
bit.
and you'll really appreciate a lot of the biblical kind of references
Yeah,
that are
And the
there.
psychology.
Yeah,
And like it's an
I-
interesting,
yeah,
it's an
yeah.
interesting delving into like a broken minds.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and that whole like we constantly talk about like zealotry and how people get how cults form and just that kind of mentality of like how society can be brainwashed or not brainwashed. So yeah, it sounds like something I'd be totally into.
We're out of time, guys. Thanks again for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. Follow us on Twitter at The Hero Lair and send us a question. Use hashtag Hero Lair or email us theherolair@gmail.com. My name's Dan. Follow me on Twitter at DanPhilippeDF. He's Mario. Where can they find you at?
So it's Mario Hammerall, HAMMERALL at for Twitter.
He's Josh.
I'm on Twitter. I'm Joshua Martyr, and for authorship, joshuamartyr.com. MARTYR.
Thanks, guys. Bye.